The Parmjeet and Pradeep show. Parmjeet, how you doing?
It's hot, man.
Yeah, today's there's a heat warning, isn't there?
It's heat warning. Means being Punjabis, we should not be surprised about that because if you go to Punjab, this is the normal thing actually, multiplied by few times. So heat waves for us, for me at least, is not such a big thing, but it does. I have noticed that it impacts us very differently than it was when I was in Punjab.
I
There,
think
40 plus degrees is pretty normal.
yeah, I think when you get acclimatized to it, then it's different. When you're out of the environment for a while, it's hard to get tough to or get used to it again. I grew up in British Columbia on an orchard, and we were out there in the orchard all the time when it was mid 30s and maybe even higher in like the entire day, talking about 10 hours in the sun, and it would get hot. I remember just wanting to find shade because I was like, oh man, the sun is just brutal. But then you just get used to it. But now that I don't have to do that, I complain about it being too hot. So I think it
No,
just depends.
exactly. Yeah. Sorry. Finish your thought.
Well, I was just gonna say, kind of, I think as you get older too, and I know for myself, as I get older, I get a little bit more pickier too. So whether that's less resilience or whatever that may be, I get a little bit picky about my environment now.
I think it's we make choices. Means I remember while uh, being in Punjab during this season, especially in July, August, when you're transplanting paddy, ਜਿਹਨੂੰ ਝੋਨਾ ਲਾਉਣਾ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਨਾ,
Hmm.
means I have
Yeah.
literally done all those things, doing everything that is required of transplanting paddy. uh, Paniri launi, paniri putani, paniri. You take it to the uh, to the place where you plant it, and it's hot, humid. It's water down, and it's a blazing sun up. And I used to remember that it is we did that, all those kind of course we complained it was hot, but I think, comparably speaking, it was not that hot as it is. No, it is not hot here as it was there.
Yeah.
And especially when you are actually in that environment, you're literally, you know, uh, covered in mud. Literally, you are covered in mud.
Mitti.
Mitti. Uh, they, it used to be interesting few months because those 2 3 months where you harvest the wheat and then you transplant the paddy, those are the hottest months, humid and very difficult to deal with. But we did that. Means I have done everything, and I, in the hindsight, I think that's one of the best thing we did because it taught us something. Of
Mm.
course, maybe I think I was not that enthusiastic when I was going through that, but in hindsight, I'm grateful for that experience, um, all the experience that we had.
Toughen you up a
So
little bit.
it does. In fact, I think we have become very, I would say, hmm, whether it's a acclimatization process or it's the less demand on the body, we have become slightly, I would say, weaker. Not, maybe that's not the perfect word in this place,
Yeah.
but
I'm going to use the word.
softened. We have softened.
Well, yeah, and that's a good segue into our topic today because we're talking about communication and how um, we're using WhatsApp and SMS as a form of communication and putting less time and effort into effective communication, which I believe is more in person, maybe even over Zoom, whatever it might be, where you can actually physically see the person and actually speak to them rather than just text them. Because I kind of use that as a lazy person's way of keeping a relationship when you're WhatsApping or texting. But I think this is important because my wife and I just had this conversation in terms of how people maintain their relationships today. And I think in a lot of contexts, people that were having more intimate relationships, let's just say for couples, are doing less of the talking and more texting now. When they can, before they used to pick up the phone call and or phone, they used to call each other. Now they're just texting. So that kind of communication, um, I think in couples or other relationships, I think it's changing how couples are. Maybe not for the better. Actually, I think in a lot of ways it's not for the better. But on the positive note, Parmjeet, I know that my mom over the last year has started to WhatsApp me. So, which is kind of funny because when I got her first WhatsApp message, I can't remember what it was. It was something maybe to do with the kids or something. She's like, something, something, okay, son, bye. I was like, I got a message from my mom on WhatsApp. Like, this is pretty cool.
No, exactly. I think, following up on your point, we are, as humans, we are suckers for convenience.
Hmm.
We just simply fall into it. We work on it. We sustain it, and then I would rather say also that we become victim of it too.
Hmm.
Uh, and that has what has happened to some extent, I would say. I don't think from my side, it's fair to say that it's all bad. There's a good side to it, but there's also bad side, which is actually very, very subtle. So this is a kind of a communication which has a really um, valuable short-term upside. It's this way of communicating is quick, bloodless. You can do it anytime. You don't have to be emotional. You don't have to work with your the sound quality, the voice quality,
Hmm.
inflection. You can just beam off a couple of words and you have communicated to the person. So
Hmm.
that to me is a that value is a short term upside in the communication process. So it does have a upside, but it to me it also has a long term downside. And long term is always this, it shows up very subtly. It's just simply insidiously find its way into your life by messing up things. And sometimes that messing up happens so slowly that we don't even recognize that something odd is happening.
Hmm.
And by the time we recognize that something odd has happened, too much water has passed under the bridge. So I think this kind of communication is like that, especially when you're talking about uh, intimate communications. And when I say word intimate, I don't only mean to include couples, but intimate can be within family, where it's a personal, it's private, where you open up your heart to someone in your family. It may be brother, sister, husband, wife, kids, grandparents, whatever that is, or maybe even included friends, because we all have some friends to whom we actually lay our hearts bare. So
Hmm.
there's a two sides to the whole story. And um, but one thing it keep on coming to me that I think, you know we the convenience gets the better of us as humans, and this is what is all about. It's convenient, and that's why we follow it, but we do forget it has the other side, and other side sometimes shows up years down the lane,
Hmm. Yeah, really good
messing up
point.
our smile. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's very valid. And I think we're starting to see the effects of social media, for example. There's more and more research coming out in terms of the detriment that it's posing on people, especially younger demographic, younger girls as well. And so I think we should notice that. I'm so surprised that actually maybe I shouldn't be surprised because we do things, humans have done things that we know are bad for us for centuries, for thousands and thousands of years as well. Smoking, for example, or drinking too much. Like it's just we know better, but we continue to do it. And so I believe that some people don't know any better in terms of effective communication, but I think some people do, and they still continue to do it based on convenience. But I think you're right. And I've seen this in my relationships with people that in some respects, I'm able to keep in touch with some people that I normally don't because it is easy to just send a message and be like, "Hey, how's it going? We haven't touched base for a long time. How's the family? How's everybody doing?" But in a lot of respects, what would have been normally a phone call is now just a text, and we just don't have that connection anymore. And then I think I see this a lot for couples, and my wife and I had to have a conscious conversation about this. Is we need to text less and actually speak more. It's just so easy to be able to text each other, but we need to actually be able to have conversations and speak to each other because when we first started dating, we were talking to each other for hours. And then, after a while, you're just kind of like, you're saying three words to each other. Um, but you have this whole stream of texts, and you can tell that that's not necessarily happy. I don't want to have a relationship with anybody, especially my wife, That's just through technology, right? And you're the expert in mindfulness when we talk about being present. I don't believe technology. Oh, I shouldn't say this. There's technology that, there's always two sides of the coin, but a lot of technology pulls us out of the present. And that happens quite often.
It does, and I think technology provides a convenient way for us to uh, navigate around the discomfort of doing face-to-face conversations.
Mhm.
Most of the conversations are okay. Means if you're having a kind of a normal run-of-the-mill type of conversation with a friend, it's not very uncomfortable. It may be even funny, amusing. You might want to do more of it. But when it comes to intimate conversations, and conversations which are full of conflicts, which often happen more than we tend to think, in family life, whether it's between husband or wife, or whether it's between kids and parents, whether it's between kids and grandparents, or whatever the case may be. Intimate relationships often come with a side dish of conflictive communication. And I
Mhm.
think technology provides a kind of a convenient bypass to that.
Mhm.
And because instead of saying 20 words in a text, you can choose to say two. Uh, but in face to face, you can't do that.
Or just one, LOL.
Yeah, you can't do that because the context is not going to be there.
Mhm.
Uh,
So
so
Parvati, what's your recommendation? Like, what do you think now? How should, especially in our culture, for example, a lot of people use WhatsApp. That's very, very common. And so, what suggestions do you have for whether it's couples or it's parents, or just people in general when it comes to the use of technology, especially WhatsApp or SMS?
so the way I do that is that WhatsApp would serve a purpose. Um, Means the question I often ask myself: does it serve the purpose for this purpose? And if the answer is yes, I would use it. If the answer is no, I would not use it.
Hmm.
Um, I think in intimate, and again, I want to clarify so that intimate is not just for couples. Intimate is
Hmm.
private. Anything which any situation which requires a little bit of an investment in communication. If I had a chance to do between WhatsApp and phone call, I would do the phone call. If I have a choice between WhatsApp, phone call, face to face conversation, I will pick the hardest one, the face to face communication. So usually that's my way of looking at things. Means I personally, my use of WhatsApp have gone down dramatically in the past few years. I was glad to have connected to a lot of friends, old long-time friends, but I noticed that our communication literally went down the drain.
Hmm.
Um, Means it's no longer that fulfilling for me to write messages to my friends. So I rather not write anything than to just send a WhatsApp message unless it is necessary. So there's always times when it becomes necessary, and you can WhatsApp or any type of SMS or texting can be very useful. But usually I default or I lean toward face to face if I have a chance. If face to face and what we call mm, uh, phone call as well as WhatsApp, I will pick phone call. And if I have only chance between phone call, means there's no chance for me to have phone call, then I will pick WhatsApp.
Hmm.
um, Now you can have phone call on the WhatsApp, which, but the point here is that what kind of communication you want to do. That's what I have done. And I have personally can actually share with you that um, over the years, the the conversations I used to, excuse me, the conversations I used to have with my longtime friends, the quality have gone down, eh, through social media and all those things. And it
Hmm.
has come to the point I no longer check my Facebook, especially the non-business type kind. I'm no longer interested who is going for dinner, as long as, unless or until I am invited to that. I'm
Yeah.
not interested if somebody is going somewhere, because uh, it creates a kind of a very different kind of ecosystem in our mind. uh, it has become a kind of antithesis of friendship and relationships. Everybody is trying to show off or something that they, but at, and we all know that this actually creates a very, very big problem in the relationships.
Hmm.
So it used to be a kind of tool for communication. Now it's a tool for showcasing your day-to-day life, which accelerate the wear and tear between relationship or among relationships. So my way of doing thing is that if I can do face-to-face conversation, I will pick that. If not, phone call and WhatsApp or any text message is the last resort.
It's really
Unless
interesting. Sorry, go ahead.
unless it is warranted differently. So
Mhm.
exceptions are always there, but that's my thought of doing things. I'm not in a way saying that it's perfect, but this makes me more comfortable with the process.
Yeah, and I think what you've talked about is valid. I think it's important because I think we have to evaluate the investment that we have in our relationship. So the most important ones, we should be spending the time and effort to go out of our ways to nurture those relationships. And then maybe the ones that aren't as important to us or critical to our daily happiness, maybe those are individuals that we text and WhatsApp and just check in every once in a while. But you mentioned something, and I think that I find this really interesting. Actually, I find it very annoying when people communicate via social media channels. When they communicate through Instagram, for example, or Facebook Messenger. I think for me that is just not effective at all because now you're not only sending messages electronically through this medium, but you're also getting distracted by Facebook feeds and Instagram feeds at the same time. So it's kind of like overload on your brain because I've seen people with their phone and they'll be send a message and then they'll go to their Instagram stream and then they'll go back to the message and they'll go to the Instagram stream and then back to the message. It's like, it's like crazy in terms of the communication, the way we've been training our minds here. But I think ultimately what we're saying here in this episode to kind of wrap it up is that we have to be aware and conscious of our relationships, the investment that we make, and the mediums that we use to communicate. And it's up to us to be conscious because society isn't teaching us to be conscious. I believe they're teaching us to be the complete opposite.
No, it's not. I don't think it's society wants us to be conscious. Society wants us to be an autopilot so somebody can
Hmm.
make a buck out of us.
Yeah.
And that's true for social media. That's true for almost everything. So, so just adding to your point, that I think we all have to actually reconsider and rethink about the investment, because relationships they require a daily investment or regular investment for them to sustain itself over the period of time, and otherwise they just fall off the wagon.
Hmm.
The most cherished relationships simply become kind of acquaintances over the period of time. And if you notice, what has happened is simply the lack of will and lack of investment in that process. So having that kind of a thought process can be useful, and reminding yourself that at the end of the day, um, what kind of relationship you want to have with the individual you value very much. I think if we ask that question, we are smart enough to know what's the right thing to do. Sometimes we delude ourselves to we get into that smarty pants syndrome.
Hmm.
But smarty pants syndrome is the one which actually have a long term downside to it. And I
Hmm.
tend to think these all things, as good they are and as valuable they can be in a context, they can also have that kind of, they can derail our private relationship pretty effectively over the period of time, that you won't even know what happened and at what point.
So the one thing I'm getting out of this farm sheet, um, just to kind of close up my comments, that I picked up is watch out for the long-term effects because they're not always apparent. It might take years, maybe even decades, but what is that doing to your relationship when you're just texting or WhatsApping versus actually speaking to the individuals and not putting the time and effort in that you could be putting in. So thank you for bringing that to my attention.
Thank you, Pradeep, for actually picking up a very important topic, because I think it impacts us all of us, and especially the kids. I mean, our kids. This is going to be a big thing. I keep on emphasizing to our kids that, remember, uh, people on the other end of the social media, they are there consuming information. It's your responsibility to think what you want to put out there, how you want to negotiate that, and where you want to put your money in. And
Hmm.
I'm using the money here in a metaphorical sense. And if you do an investment in a wrong portfolio, you end up actually getting burned. And I think
Mm.
relationships are like that. I think I would say that a lot of people do invest a lot of time, but they are investing in the wrong portfolios.
Yeah, great way to say it. Great way to put it, because you've used a great analogy that I think a lot of people can relate to. You can spend a lot of money, time, and effort investing in a certain investment fund or whatever it may be, but it might not get you the return that you're looking for. So that's awesome. Great way to put it.
Okay.
Okay. Well, thanks, Parmjeet. Thank you out there for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, share with your audience, or share with your friends, I should say, because we appreciate your support. So we will catch you next time. Take care.
Yep, and maybe we can actually leave our viewers and listeners with one thing. So next time you feel tempted to text a friend, let us challenge you: pick up phone and give a call, or if you it is possible, go and have a cup of tea or coffee or whatever you want.
Yeah, great challenge. I love it. So you heard Parmjeet there. Get up and go meet the person live. So thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next time.